Welcome back to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter and I'm so glad you're here with me today. I have a fun week planned. I hope that's the plan. So let me tell you, the working title for this video is Salsa Taco Sauce. Now I'm having a bit of a challenge with one of those items, so we'll see if it works out the way I have it planned. If the thumbnail that you clicked on says Salsa Taco Sauce, then you know everything came out as planned. If it says something different, then I had a little snafu of some sort. So we're gonna see how far we get, but as of this point in the week, I have no idea if it's gonna work out or not. So I'm gonna do a double batch this time of the tomato jalapeno salsa. It's kind of a mix and match salsa in the all new Ball Book of Canning. So let's get started with that. I have the oven on. I have some trays ready. Now I have washed all of my produce and we are ready to go. I'm just going to cut these in half and core them. So these are Carolina Gold tomatoes, and I've mentioned that a couple times, but I mean that was all the core that was in them. It's big on the top, on the outside, but there's just not much core through the rest of the tomato. And I love that. It has great flavor. I'm also going to use, I have mostly the, senior brain kicks in every now and then. I'll come back to whatever the heck that is. But I also have one of the Celebrity because I'm running out of whatever in the world that tomato is. Bella Rosa. There we go. It's a little slow, but it's still there. Okay. Tomatoes are looking good. Now I don't put any oil or anything on these. All I really want to do is blister the skins of these so that I can pull them off easily and kind of get a little bit of a good smoky flavor in there. So I have made so many different salsas in my canning life, as I'm sure you have too. The Ball Zesty Salsa was a favorite for a long time. Still love it. I will say it is a whole lot of work when done as written because everything is fresh, everything needs to be chopped tiny, makes a huge batch. It's just, I don't know. I used to love to do it because I could just stand there and chop all day. My back doesn't necessarily love to stand and chop all day anymore. So I am enjoying, or I did for a while, I roasted that one as well, and that's also a great salsa. And I'm actually running low on that, so I may make some more of that. But I don't know. We like so many sauces. I do fruit sauces and tomato sauces and tomatillo sauces and salsas and all kinds of different things, and we love them. And I always keep thinking there's a new one out there that I haven't found. Could be a new favorite. I don't know. This one's pretty tasty. The salsa ranchera that I made a couple of weeks ago, that's also excellent. I didn't have enough jalapenos to do that one, and I thought it might be a little spicy for some of my friends and neighbors. It's perfect for my husband. All right, as I mentioned, I'm doing a double batch of this one, so I think I should make 12 half pints. I did get a bunch of new half pint jars. Actually, I got several different jars. I also got some pint jars at the Walmart sale that I put up a community post about. So I got those, and they've all been through the dishwasher and they are ready to go, lined up. I'm so excited to have some more jars because, I do give a bunch of this size jar away each year in this Christmas gift. So I don't know. David keeps saying, don't you have enough jars? No, absolutely not. All right, as soon as that comes out of the oven, I'll get those tomato skins off, and I do freeze dry my tomato skins. I'll probably just throw these on a tray and stick them in a freezer for now until I have enough to fill a tray of tomato skins, and I use those year-round. I grind them up into a tomato powder, and I use them year-round to thicken things, whether it's a soup, a stew, a gravy, a whatever, just to add a bit of flavor, like if I'm throwing a pot roast in the oven or something like that. So that's just a great byproduct of this. You can also dehydrate them. I did that, I don't know, I did that for years as well, and it works absolutely just as well. It's not looking like a whole lot of jalapenos there. They're pretty small. I'm going to leave that on because I've got another thing I'm going to use that for as well. I'm going to leave these pretty chunky. Wow, I'm having a hard time getting it off. So that I have some nice, pretty chunks in the jar. Now you're going to be able to see why I like having yellow tomatoes in my salsa. I'm going to show you this pan. Now I probably have a lot more liquid in there than I'd really like to start with, so I may drain some of that out. Let me get the onions and peppers. I went ahead and measured all of the rest of the ingredients out because I am doubling this recipe. And often, I kind of forget to double as I go if I'm measuring as I go. So I wanted to make sure I got that right. I think before I get the jalapenos in there, I'm going to get out a little bit of this liquid and just set it aside in case I need it to top off the jars. All right, I'm just going to set this aside. If I need to add it back, I'll have it. And it'll be delicious, but I don't like my salsa to be too watery. There really isn't a lot of jalapenos. Let's see. All right, let's see how that mixes up. I do have some more fresh ones. I can run out to the garden and grab a few fresh ones and throw those in if I don't feel like it's quite enough. So I'm going to get you pulled over here. I did go ahead and add a few more small jalapenos in here that I did not bother roasting. So you'll see that. Let's get this turned on. I need to bring it to a boil and then let it simmer for 5 minutes. See all that color? That's why I just think this is such a beautiful gift. All right, let's go ahead and get in the other items. So we have garlic. This is pretty well defrosted now. Let that go ahead and heat up. We have salt and pepper. As I mentioned, I went ahead and measured these things out so I wouldn't forget to double them. I think I'm not going to put the cilantro in yet. And I'm going to wait on the lime juice until I see how I feel about having all this liquid in here. I think it's probably looking okay now, but we'll let it boil and see how it's looking before I put the lime juice in. So the double recipe of lime juice, or I'm sorry, the double recipe of the salsa will require a cup of lime juice. Calls for fresh. I don't have fresh. I'm using bottled, which is absolutely fine. Yeah, boy, am I glad I got rid of some of that liquid. Okay, I'm going to let that go for a few minutes now that the lime juice is in there. And cilantro, I think it's half a cup of fresh cilantro is what it calls for. This is freeze-dried. Let's get this jarred up now. I'm expecting this double batch to make 10 or 11 jars. If I hadn't roasted it, it would have been potentially 12 jars. But roasting it kind of makes everything a little bit smaller, if you will. Headspace is a ½ inch on this. So we'll go back and we'll debubble and then adjust the headspace. So always when you have solids and a liquid, you should be careful to debubble, because even if you think, you know, it looks good to me, you just never know. There's an air pocket down there in the bottom, and then that can really mess up your headspace at the end. Potentially cause it to not seal. Okay, I could use a little bit more in a couple of these. Once I get all of these in the canner, we're going to start on the next project, which I'm really excited about. These just process for 15 minutes, and then with the steam canner, I'll leave the lid on after I turn the heat off for another 5 minutes, and then they are good to come out. Yeah, I'm not going to get another 8-ounce jar out of that. So let me debubble these, top them off, and then anything that's left, I will just stick in the fridge for my husband. He'll be very excited. Okay. So that's one of the differences that roasting is going to make, and that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to wait for the steam canner to get up to the mark for my elevation. And as soon as it does that, I can start the timer for 15 minutes. And that is on its way. Okay, I'm excited about this next recipe. It is new to me, and it sounds absolutely delicious. Fire roasted tomato ancho taco sauce. Doesn't that sound good? This is from the Better Homes and Gardens Complete Canning Guide. This is a book I've had for about a year. I don't think I've made anything out of this book yet. It was recommended by one of you, and I found it on Amazon, on a used one. You can see it is inscribed here. It says, "To Misty, hope you like this book. Was thinking of you when I saw it. Love you, happy canning, Becky, June 5th, 2015. So it has been around the block. It's got a little trouble in its 3-ring binder here, but I'm really thinking that this recipe looks like something we will really enjoy. So it has some wonderful looking things. One of the reasons I was looking for a recipe that used my poblano peppers, because I have several right now that are ready. I didn't have quite enough. This one's kind of squatty, but it wasn't going to go anywhere from that stage, so I thought I'd go ahead and use that. I also had these ancho chilies in my pantry. These are wonderful. I get them on Amazon. Super easy. They smell absolutely delicious. Now, usually when you're going to use a dried chili, you will roast it on, well, I don't even have it out, but like a cast iron pan or something, and kind of get the oils going. But this recipe doesn't call for that. So we're going to remove the stems and seeds and then chop them up into small pieces. And then they're going to go into the pot to cook with everything else for about ½ an hour. So they should really loosen up, and then everything's going to be blended. So I don't think we're going to have any issues with that. So I'm going to get the tomatoes chopped in half and thrown on a pan. I'm going to stick them under the broiler. None of the rest goes in to be roasted for this one. So let me make some space. All right, let's get these in. Okay, I have those in on broil. Now with the cumin seeds, Now, most of what I use in my kitchen is already ground cumin powder, but when you toast the seeds and then grind it, it's so much more flavorful. All right, I'm going to toast those, but I'm going to get these out first. So I'm just going to throw those in there, and we're going to keep a good eye on it. We should smell it when it's time. All right, the tomatoes are out of the oven. Also turning off the cumin seeds. They are tasty and very fragrant. Just slide those slightly off the heat there. Let me show you these tomatoes. They only take a couple of minutes under the broiler. And you can see how those skins just loosen up. So I'm going to let those cool, and then we'll get those peeled and chopped up for the pot. Let's get these ancho chilies done here. So we're going to stem them and seed them. Most of that should be able to happen relatively easily over my garbage bowl. But, you know, famous last words. We'll see how that goes. I have to dig in there just a little bit. There we go. Okay, 6 ancho chilies. I'm going to see how, you know what, I think I'm going to cut these with scissors instead of trying to use a knife on them. I just think that'll be too difficult. Scissors are going to do the trick very easily. Read what they want me to do. I think just into small pieces because, as I said, we are going to blend this. So this will be just fine. Oh. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put these in the bottom of the pan where we're going to cook everything, the pot where we're going to cook everything. Now I'm going to work on the jalapenos, poblanos. Poblanos have been a thing that's been hard for me to grow. You know, you buy the just plain old poblano seed or the start at a Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and they just don't grow well for me. These are a couple of hybrids that I got from Johnny's, and only one variety. I don't remember which one this is. I can look that up as well. Only one of the varieties is really producing anything for me this year. I like to stuff these with all kinds of fun things. Whatever meat I have, whether it's taco meat or scrambled sausage or pulled pork, whatever I have. And then top it with some kind of sauce and cheese. And then run it under the broiler so that you maintain some integrity to the pepper itself, but everything else is melty and yummy and hot. And that's just one of my favorite ways to use poblanos. So I keep trying to find a variety that's going to give me plenty to do that with, and I have not found it yet. But I did have enough to do this recipe. Again, these are going to go in the blender, so they don't need to be finely chopped. All right, I'm going to dump these in the pan as well. Thought I had missed. Okay, 1 jalapeno, and then we'll do the onion. And we'll get onto those tomatoes. This is going to cook together for about 30 minutes. It's going to need to reduce quite a good bit. So let's get it down to just over 4 cups or so before you add the vinegar and lime juice. This is going in. Now we can get to the tomatoes. Super easy with these Romas to peel them off. Okay, I think I got everything. I'm not going to worry about all of the tomato liquid that's in this one because I do have those dried ancho chilies that need to rehydrate. And I do still have the other tomato liquid. So if I need more, because I'm going to be cooking them rather than just letting them sit, I have plenty more to add. Okay, let's get that on the stove. Give it a good stir. Get that on, and let's get these taken care of. Let me get cleaned up first. All right, these cumin seeds smell fantastic. Okay, freshly ground cumin seed. Delicious. All right, let's get the rest of these ingredients in here. You're gonna have to come around. I'm gonna go ahead and add everything except the two liquids. So here's the vinegar, here's the lime juice. I'm not gonna add those yet. In fact, we've got quite a bit of time to wait there, so I'm gonna add the garlic. I already put the cumin in here. Now I want to do the salt. Let's start with about half a tablespoon. And then we'll taste it along the way and see if it's going to be right. Okay, so half a tablespoon in here. And we'll just know that I can add up to, well, I can add as much as I want, but I might need to add another half tablespoon or so. And then sweetener, it says, I think 4.5 teaspoons of sugar and 4.5 teaspoons of minced garlic. Those are kind of strange measurements, but I'm going to use allulose, use sugar, use honey, use, you know, whatever it is that you use that's okay for canning. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. Allulose, as you may know, is 70% as sweet as sugar, so it's a little less sweet than sugar. So if I decide I want to add more of that, I do want to taste for that as well. I always love to find new sauces and, you know, condiments of really any style to help perk up, change a dish, make it feel fresh. All right, I'm gonna bring that up to a boil and then let it simmer for half an hour. And we'll be back to take a look. This has been simmering now for 30 minutes with the lid off. It says to simmer it until the fresh peppers and onions that we put in are soft. So let's see. Okay, there we go. That's pretty soft there, so I think that looks all right. And then put the lid on and let it rest for half an hour, which also serves to bring the temperature down just a little bit so I can stick it in the blender. Okay, this has been sitting with its lid on for about 30 minutes. David came in and said, whatever you're cooking smells spicy. And he is right, it does smell spicy, and it tastes spicy as well. I think it's gonna be fantastic though, when it mellows a little bit. So let's get it into the blender, and I'm gonna get it all blended up, and then we have to put it back in the pot, bring it to a boil, let it simmer until it gets down to about 4 cups worth, and then we can add our vinegar and lime juice. So let's get this churned up. Okay, it looks like I have about 7 cups, maybe a little bit more, starters. Oh, that looks great, great. Now I'm going to run this through a fine mesh sieve so that I end up with a very smooth sauce, but let's give it a taste. Remember, I didn't put all the salt it calls for in there, and I'm not sure if the sweetness is going to need to be increased. I think I need more salt. So I put in half a tablespoon before. It said to put in a full tablespoon of kosher salt, so I don't want to put in, I think I'll put in another teaspoon. So I'm still slightly under that tablespoon. Put that in there, and I do think I'll add just a little more allulose as well. Don't want it to be sweet, but it does help just a little bit to kind of bring it together. All right, another couple of blends here, and we ought to be good to put it back in the pan and put it straight back in the pot. Oh yeah, this is going to work great. We would just want a super smooth taco sauce. I kind of like this consistency, so I don't know that I really want to cook it down to 4 cups. Might leave it a little thicker. It still seems like a nice pourable consistency. Okay, that's pretty good. So we're just down to the tomato seeds that didn't get blended up, and that's great. I don't want those in my sauce anyway. It's a pretty smooth, beautiful sauce. All right, I'm going to cook this down just a little bit, but you can see the consistency on it. We still have to add a 1/4 cup of vinegar and a little bit of lime juice. So I don't mind cooking it down a little bit. But I do want it to be pourable as a taco sauce. All right, let me turn this up. So good. So good. Tastes very much like what you would find in a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. Okay, I think this is about ready to add the vinegar and lime juice, but I wanted to show you, I just did a pH test on it. So I have not added the acid, the main acid here, and I'm getting about 3.5. So I think that is fantastic and good to go. It's going to water bath can, or actually I'm going to steam can it for 35 minutes, and then I will turn off the canner and let it sit for 5 minutes, as we always do with steam canning. This is a beautiful sauce. Really smooth. Okay, in goes the vinegar. I'm going to give it another taste test after I put these in. Now it has another one of these weird measurements for the lime juice. 1.5 teaspoons, which seems like a why bother to me. So I love the taste of lime juice, and I think it's really going to brighten this up. So I'll start with 1/2 tablespoon, which is 1.5 teaspoons, and then we'll go from there. But I think I'm probably going to want a little bit more than that. But I don't need it to make it safe for water bath canning, which is why I went ahead and did the pH test before. Ooh, I should get my canner on. That's so good. Just gonna add another half a tablespoon. That'll take me up to a tablespoon of lime juice. And it does help to brighten it up. It's just a very slight taste kind of in the background there of the lime juice. That's perfect. Okay, as soon as my jars then heat up, and I really didn't let this reduce very much, but I don't think I want it any thicker than that. So I may end up with more jars than I was planning on, which would be fantastic. So I think I'll put an extra jar in there to heat up. We'll be optimistic. Okay. So there we go. That is pretty much empty. And I ended up with 7 half pints, which is far better than the 5 the recipe told me to expect. So I'll take that. It doesn't usually work out that way. But I would not want this any thicker and then try to can it and be able to pour it on tacos. I have a sneaky suspicion this may become one of our new favorite sauces in the pantry. I'll keep you posted on that. All right, let's get it going. You can see that is really beautiful. All right, let's get one more salsa done this week. I'm excited about this one because I have never done anything like this one, and I have done a lot of salsas over the years. This one is a freezer salsa. I've never done a freezer salsa, not ever. I know a lot of you have. I know a lot of people love it, so it must be good. It sounds a little weird to me, but we're going to do that today, and I'm quite sure it's going to completely change my mind forever on freezer salsa. And I have a couple of ways I want to use it. It's not going to be, for my purposes, I don't think, just a regular chip dip. I have plenty of chip dip, and frankly, it's much easier for me to just keep that on the pantry shelf than to take up room in the freezer. But I have a couple of particular ideas of how I think this is going to be very useful to me in my kind of everyday cooking. So let's talk about the recipe, because I went through a lot of recipes trying to find one that I really thought would work for what I wanted. A lot of them have some funny ingredients in it, like condensed tomato soup, and I don't know, there were some weird things that I did not necessarily want for my particular frozen salsa. So this is where I found this. I'm going to put up a picture so you can see this, because it is a mix and match recipe. So this is Better Homes and Gardens Preserving. This is a magazine, you know, one of those things you find in the checkout line for some outrageous price. Yeah, $12.99 in 2021. But I can't resist these things. So I try to stay out of the grocery line as much as I can. But it has the base of the tomatoes and the garlic, and then you kind of choose, mix and match everything else. So you choose which peppers you're going to use, you choose which onions you're going to use, which acid, which fresh herb, and which seasoning you're going to use. But let me tell you quickly what I'm using here. I'm going to use the tomatoes, of course. I have some roasted garlic that I pulled out of my freezer. It calls for a small onion, or I chose to use a small onion, but I'm not sure they really meant that small. But this is what I have left from my garden this year, so I'm going to use 4 of those. And then I have some tiny little jalapenos. I just went ahead and pulled the smallest ones because they were ready to go. And then I'm going to use lime juice, freeze-dried cilantro, cumin, and smoked paprika. So I picked 2 of the spices. So my garlic is already roasted, but everything else needs to be roasted. So there are a couple of things that seem to run through all of the freezer salsa recipes that I saw that seem to be much more important than what ingredients you choose. You have your way with your ingredients. But a couple of things seem to be important, and the first is the consistency of what goes into the freezer. You don't want it to be too runny, right? You want to have a lot of that liquid, particularly from the tomatoes, and they specifically suggest Roma tomatoes so that there is less liquid. However, you know that these will still release some, and certainly if you use round tomatoes, you're going to end up with more liquid, and you want to make sure that you get as much of that out. Otherwise, it's basically just going to be ice that will melt into your salsa, when it comes out of the freezer. And then the other thing is to blend this salsa. Now you don't have to blend it until it is completely smooth. You could leave it a little bit chunky, but even though all of these things freeze beautifully without much preparation, without any real preparation at all, what you don't want is to bite into the texture of a thawed jalapeno or a thawed onion or whatever. It's not going to be exactly what you want. So you want that blend so that everything defrosts and comes out in a form that actually tastes really good to you. So those are the most important things to keep in mind. Everything else is really up to you. So think about ways that you would use something like this. I'll share with you the ways I'm going to use it as we go through it. But I'm wide open to more ideas. So the other thing, actually, there are a couple of reasons I chose this particular recipe. One, because I had fun basically reading this recipe and thinking about all the different options of what I could put together and what would suit me best. So I found that very appealing. The second thing I found very appealing is that the cooking part of this happens under the broiler. I don't have to deal with the pan. I don't have to get everything out. I don't have to do any of that. I don't have to chop anything. I need to cut it in half so I can stick it under the broiler. But basically everything happens in the oven and then in the blender, and then it goes into the freezer. And that sounds like my kind of sauce at the end of the week here. All right, let's get going. Okay, we're done. These are gonna go under the broiler for 8 to 10 minutes. We're gonna check them. If I need any olive oil or anything on there, I'm fine adding that. I'm not gonna roast the garlic because, as I said, my garlic is already roasted and sliced and was in my freezer, so it's pretty well defrosted now anyway. All right, I'm gonna get these in. All right, we'll keep a good eye on those. I'm gonna clean up and I'm gonna get what I'm gonna freeze these in, and then we'll talk about how I'm gonna use them. And the other thing I wanted to go ahead and mention before I forget is that we have been using the taco sauce for the past couple of nights. Oh my gosh, we love having the taco sauce. First time I've made a taco sauce as well, and we absolutely love that. I think I took a picture of our tacos the other night, so if so, I'll put that in here. But that one is a real keeper as far as I'm concerned. All right, I'll get cleaned up and we'll come back, and this is almost done. I mean, basically it is almost done. And that's one of the things that was so great to me about this particular method. I know we talked about it, we're just doing the cooking in the oven. It's just gonna roast and that's it, right? But some of them cooked for 3 or 4 hours on the stove. I don't have time to sit around and do that. You don't have time to sit around and do that. And it's not a massive batch, so you'd have to keep a real close eye on something that's got to cook for 3 to 4 hours. So you'll see I took out the seeds and membranes and everything from my tomatoes and from the peppers, of course, but I took them out from the tomatoes simply because I don't want them in my end product. It's absolutely fine if you don't want to take them out. It doesn't say to take them out. And here's the other thing. I'm going to give you one more thing I really liked about this. This recipe keeps those charred skins on. A lot of the recipes that I saw, you had to, blanch and then peel the tomatoes, yada, 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 and then they wanted you to add tomato paste to thicken it up. This one leaves the charred skin on, which I really, really like in a salsa for both the peppers and the tomatoes. I love those little charred bits. Love to see them in a salsa, love to taste them in a salsa. But I think when I use mine the way I'm going to use it, I think that's going to be so much extra flavor. Really going to love it. All right, back in a sec. Okay, we are done. Everything is nicely charred. I'm going to let it sit for just a minute, and then we'll get it in the blender along with all the seasonings. Okay, we're doing this to taste, so I have lots of tasting spoons available here. Let's talk about how I'm going to use it. And you can use yours any way that suits you. I'm going to put mine in little muffin tins because I would like to use this as a seasoning, not as, something I'm going to dip chips in. So one of the things I like to do, particularly for breakfast, is to take a jar of previously canned ground beef and mix it up with smoked paprika and cumin, my two favorite spices, a little salt and pepper, and cook it up and then put some cheese on top. So now what I'd like to be able to do, also with garlic and onion powder, so what I'd like to be able to do is just throw one of these little pucks in there and kind of season it up. So that's my thought there. The other thing I want to be able to do is freeze dry some of these and see how that works as a seasoning in something where there is liquid involved in whatever it is that I'm cooking. I don't want to have to rehydrate it first. I just want to throw it into, maybe it's into an egg dish or into a sauce dish or something like that. And then the third way I want to do it is take some of those freeze-dried little pucks, and that's what I'm going to call these little salsa pucks, and grind them up so that I can use it to shake like a powdered seasoning. So maybe if I'm going to fry up some low-carb tortillas or something like that, I can shake it on and get some like taco seasoning, Dorito kind of things. I don't know. Sounds delicious to me. But having never done any of that before, I don't know if I'm going to like it, so I'm glad it's just a small batch. But I do want to try it all kinds of different ways. And if you have other ways that I should try using this, please let me know. All right, let's get moving on this. I'm going to get everything into the blender. I'm going to go ahead and put all of the vegetables in first, and then we'll add the seasonings. Salt, I'm going to need some salt too. Let me get that out. All right, let's get the jalapenos down in there. Onions. I'm excited about having these charred bits of skin in here. That's a lot of garlic, definitely more than 4 cloves of garlic, but keep in mind how I'm using this as a seasoning, and I love garlic, so I'm excited about that. So I mentioned this was already roasted in some probably avocado oil, could have been extra virgin olive oil. But that has been roasted and in the freezer. Now let's get some of these seasonings in. Let's do just a little bit of salt. It doesn't give me a suggested amount, so I'm just going to put a little bit in, and then we'll alter that as we taste it. I'm going to save the cilantro for a little bit, get this blended up first. I'm going to do a teaspoon of cumin because that's one of the flavors I'm really looking for in this. Just suggest half a teaspoon. And then I'm going to do a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Again, because that's what I particularly want. Use the ones that suit you. And let's get some lemon juice in there. I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons. It suggests 2 or 3, so I'll start with 2 and go up to 3, or I'll go up to however many I want, actually. But we'll see after we taste it. Okay. I don't want it to be totally smooth. Ooh. A little steam coming out of there. That's where we are right now. Let's give that a taste. Oh, it's a lot of heat I put in there. I keep doing that to myself with the jalapenos. Yowza. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm going to add a little more oh. That was spicy. A little bit's going to go a long way given the jalapenos that I used. I'm going to put a little more lime juice in here. And I think I'm going to put a little more cumin, maybe a little more smoked paprika as well. Another half a teaspoon of cumin. This is probably not the level of spice you would want in something that you're going to dip chips in. I mean, all these seasonings. Okay, a little bit more of that. Now, let's see. So what I don't know, because I've never done a freezer salsa before, is if my jalapenos are going to mellow over time like they do when you can them. So, if you know the answer to that, let me know. It's pretty good. That bite wasn't nearly as hot as the last one. All right, let's get a little more salt in there, I think. Another 1/4 teaspoon is what I'm putting in. And then we'll get the cilantro in there. Now, it suggests a 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro. I have freeze-dried cilantro. So let's see. I'm going to grind it up a little bit in my hand here because I don't want it too mixed in. I still want to see that there's cilantro in here. All right, let's see how that works. Kind of went everywhere. See that? It looks really good. Tastes delicious. I don't know what happened to the jalapeno spice. First bite was a killer. Maybe my tongue is just numb, but that one wasn't bad at all. Okay, now let's see how best to get this into my little muffin tin. So I'm going to go straight in the freezer to pre-freeze, and then I will store them some way. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to store them yet. Maybe in a jar, maybe in a silicone bag. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll figure that out. And I'm going to pull some off and freeze dry them, and I'll keep you posted on how those are. They won't be done by the time this video needs to be posted, but I will keep you posted and show you how I'm using them. I'll let you know if they're good. So those are maybe 2 tablespoons a piece there. I'm going to get some smaller ones done. It'll be 1 tablespoon a piece. I can't wait to pop these out and see how they do. So now if you want to store yours as salsa, or if you have a larger family and you would use larger quantities of this, you could store it in a plastic bag and freeze it flat, and then you can stand it up in the freezer. You can store it in jars. You can store it in those little plastic tubs that are so popular. You can store it in whatever you have, right? All right, so I'm going to get all of these in the freezer. I get them pre-frozen, and then I'll package them up, get some in the freeze dryer. Probably going to be, I don't know what else I have going in the freeze dryer next week. We'll see. But I will keep you posted on how the freeze-dried ones turn out and how the powdered ones turn out. Maybe we'll do that together when we make a bunch of different seasoned salt kind of things. So I hope you have a fabulous week. I hope your current week was great. I hope you got a lot done if you had a lot to do. If you didn't have a lot to do and just needed to relax, I hope you got that done too. So that is just as important as getting all the things done. So have a great week ahead of you, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.